What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Lead. Your host, is always, Harley Dugan. We got a very special guest with us. Rockets Twitter knows him as Don Knock. I will refer to him as Don. Go ahead and talk about yourself, promote yourself, whatever you want to tell us, man.
Hey everybody. My name is Don. I've been growing in Rockets Twitter for probably I'm gonna say the last 12, 16 months. I started out doing a lot of aggregation stuff. I really haven't done a lot on YouTube. So since this is a YouTube audience, I do want to kind of give some background on myself, but started doing some aggregation stuff. I got in with Jackson Gatlin, doing some green room things with him. And then they brought me on to Apollo. Now I host the Apollo Launchpad. I also host the Rockets Town Halls on Spaces. Those have been going very well for me, and I'm trying to get involved with a new app called Air, AIRR. We're gonna do a lot more stuff on there. I just actually got off another Zoom with David, one of the founders of the Air app, so look for that as well. We're gonna be doing a bunch of stuff on there, especially kind of do some stuff like halftime during games, some draft stuff, a few things, leading up to the Spaces, and we may end up getting some comments section availability on there. So that way, if someone has a comment, something they want to say when we do the Rocket Spaces and they can't get their voice in there, we're gonna try to have those overflow onto the Air app so we can answer those kind of afterwards. So that's just a little bit about what I do. I'm born and raised in Houston. I'm not in Houston right now. I'm actually out of town. I travel for work, but like I said, I'm born and raised in Houston, Astros fan, Rockets fan, all that stuff. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. Like I said, that was a little background on myself. So appreciate everyone for watching it and following Harley here and subscribing. So thanks. And I'm excited to talk Rockets.
Awesome. Yeah, man. You got a busy schedule, man. We appreciate opening up some time and coming on, and you just mentioned Rockets, the Spaces, Twitter Spaces. Oh my goodness. Great invention by them. And Rockets Town Hall is absolutely insane. The Rockets Space last night was berserk. I did not know. Every once in a while I join in, I try to do it about twice a week, 3 times a week. I've gotten into it. I kind of like it. And man, I came in a little late yesterday and whoa, my golly, did you expect 900 plus people in there?
No. So we did the biggest space we ever done before. This was the one 2 days before. We had about 400 people. Yeah. Before that, we had done a space for the draft, like as the draft was happening, reacting live, and we had about 250 in that one. So when we did the draft space, I thought it may be months, if not years, before we ever got to the 250 again. And then after 2 games ago, to even get to 400 was just mind-boggling. Me and Zeke from Rockets Lead, we really came up with the town hall format, and we just really wanted to get like a bunch of different content creators together and be able to kind of blend audiences and have everyone kind of share ideas that way, and then get some other people on there that don't have a big audience to have their voice be heard and stuff like that. And to go from that core idea to what we saw last night, it was I was just walking around my hotel room just kind of in shock at what was going on, because I do have a relationship with Ali Khan. We were on some green rooms together with Jackson, and Ali Khan just messaged me and said, hey man, is it cool if I'd be able to get Kelly, Salman, and Spolane up here and we kind of do some live stuff? And I was like, absolutely, man, go right ahead. So beamed them up real quick. They did kind of basically like a live pod on the space, and that was incredible. We had a lot of Rockets fans that got on there and just poured their heart out, whether it was about House or Silas or how Jalen Green is used or whatever the case may be. It was just, I think a lot of people really need that right now, because it's a tough time. This fan base is coming off the Harden era, the Francis era, the T-Mac and Yao era, right? Like those, they may not have been championship eras, but we were always competitive, right? We always fielded a team that looked good. And to go from that to where we are now, it's a big difference. I think people are going to have an adjustment period. Going into the season, I really talked about, this fan base may not be ready for a rebuild. I think even knowing that going in, it's still like once you're actually in, like going through it, right? Like it's gonna be even worse than kind of some people speculate. And I think to have that space, to have these engagements where people can really like vent and get their frustrations out, I think it helps people not really bottle that up inside, and also people realize that others feel the same way I do. It's not just me. It's not just me screaming into the void of Twitter with my 240 characters and stuff like that. So it was an awesome event last night. Hopefully they go well, and hopefully the Rockets get some wins, so it's not super negative too. Because as awesome as it is to have that level of content and that level of engagement, at the end of the day, I'm a Rockets fan, right? So I don't want to see them lose 80 games. Now I want to see them get some wins, and then we can have some celebration spaces. We won't just have to have the safe spaces too. So that may be version 2.0 once we can finally get some wins coming in, is some celebration spaces. So.
Yeah, man, I've seen too many Charlotte Bobcat references, and I don't like looking at that.
Yeah.
But 1-14 it's a tough stretch. Even if we were 1-14, let's say in an alternate version of this universe, but we were very competitive in all 15 games, and most of them, they competed with some really good teams, and then there's some games where you're just like scratching your head and kind of just confused. So there's a lot of Rockets Twitter going out there. 1-14. Was this what we were expecting from the Rockets, or were we expecting something different? Should the expectations calm down? What do you think so far, man?
So circling back to the Bobcats, I just want to point one thing out that it's been addressed a few times, but Stephen Silas's dad was the coach of that Bobcats team. And I really feel for Coach Silas, because, you have two generations of Silases just leading these terrible, terrible rosters and things like that. But, going into the season, I did some preview stuff before we got the news that John Wall was going to start the season. I said the over-under of 25, I thought they may be able to overshoot by like 5 or so games, maybe get to 27 to 30 wins. So, already coming in with a sub 500 expectation. Once Wall went out, I think I was probably ready to drop that down to have the under 25. So maybe, like 19 to 23 games. I did not expect 1-14 at all. I think the thing that really has people troubled is that we're at this weird point of, we're not winning and we're not really prioritizing the young guys either. I think that's where a lot of people are like conflicted, because, if we're losing these games, but Josh Christopher's playing 20 minutes a game, Garuba's getting some run, Şengün is out there, playing 30, 40 minutes, depending on the night. I think people would be okay with the losing, because it's like, hey, these are young guys, these are our draft picks, and that's who we really want to see get playing time. And last night we saw Garrison Matthews and KJ get a little bit more run, and I like that. I'm pretty high on KJ. I think KJ may be able to work his way into even maybe a starting lineup spot at some point. I'm that high on him, but overall, I do think it's good that Garuba is going to go down to the G League. He's going to get some more reps. I think that's going to be good for him. But Christopher, they're kind of bouncing him back and forth with Augustine. We're going to give Christopher 5 minutes tonight. Now we're going to give Augustine 15 minutes here and there. The role definition is just not good. And even with the tinkering they did last night with the starting lineup of, we're going to start Daniel House, there was a lot of groaning and sighs around the Houston area when that news dropped. I saw a lot of people that were not pleased when that happened, and due to sickness or whatever the case may be. House was flipped out for Nwaba going in the second half. Yeah. I think people didn't want Nwaba either. I think people really wanted KJ, or they wanted even Eric Gordon. Well, I saw Eric Gordon was in the starting lineup, but once KPJ comes back, even if you put Eric Gordon in the starting lineup, I think people will be more comfortable with that than House, Tice, or Nwaba. And I think the goal for me is to get to that Şengün Wood front court. I think that's what I want to see. I think that's what a lot of people want to see. And just with the way Şengün has looked, passing, decision making, processing. I was someone, I really like Şengün coming out of the draft. I thought he has a lot of passing ability, he has a lot of interior post ability, and his shot looked good. It didn't look like Alonzo Ball shot coming out where you're gonna have to do a bunch of tinkering with it and mess with it and things like that. I was like, there's a lot there offensively. We just need to see how he does on the defensive end. And he's really, he's really done well defensively. He moves his feet well. He has really good block timing. His defensive processing is good. He takes good angles. And so to see all of those things, I mean, those are the biggest worries. And for him to answer all of those questions, and still not be, moved into the starting role when he's outperformed Tice by all the analytics, by all the metrics, right? Like he's doing better than Tice. I think the only thing you could say that Tice has over Şengün is screen setting at this point. And, Şengün is such a good slipper and a good driver that, that really negates any advantage that Tice has by being a better screen setter and a good sealer in the paint. But, that's what I think. I think that's what the expectation was going to be coming in, was that we want to play the young guys. If we lose, we lose. But, it has been disappointing to lose a Laker game close, to lose to the Thunder and to lose some of these other close games. But the Detroit game as well, right? That was one that I think a lot of people wanted to win just because, Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham, that's going to be a big thing to watch. And I think we're going to get into this a little bit later, but, it's going to simmer down now that Evan Mobley is unfortunately going to miss some time due to injury. But I think Evan Mobley coming out and setting the world on fire really had people kind of riled up as well. It's like, we need our guy to do something because we're feeling the pressure from all these Mobley people right now. Yeah. I think in terms of expectations, I think you had all those factors kind of at play and just really riling everyone up and making the fan base uncomfortable and calling for the coaching staff to do something different because, what's going on out there is not working at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I've been, before the draft, I was on the boats. I was on two different boats. I was on the Green Gang and then I was on Mobley Mob. I really liked Evan Mobley, but I also saw the justification for Jalen Green. So I was kind of like, you know what, coin toss. I like both prospects at this point. Give me whoever they're going to get and I'm going to ride with them. And well, Evan Mobley, to me, the reason I've seen more of his success early on, Cleveland Cavaliers, they got a better team overall. I mean, you got a guy in Colin Sexton who I remember just last year took down the almighty Nets behind an all-time great performance by him. And Colin Sexton, yes, he's been in trade rumors with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not sure what they're doing with him or whatever, but he's a dog. Like, that's just his mentality, and he runs that team. And that's something that Jalen Green comes into, and there's nothing but 19, 20, 21-year-olds, and it's going to be more of a difficult task for him to really showcase who he is. Now, we got to see a little bit of that, being him a little bit more aggressive, and got to see him in space a little bit more, dropping 21 points, looked really solid. He's had really good games. He's had some bad games. But at the end of the day, this is a young team. Turnovers, free throw attempts, those are the biggest problems in terms of young teams. And that is what's the problem with the Houston Rockets. Those are the two things. And it's tough to throw that on Silas. It's tough to throw that on him. I get he deserves blame. I get that. But are we already cutting for his head? Like, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff coming out for him already.
So just kind of circle back on some of the stuff you touched on there, right? I think coming out, I was definitely a Green supporter, but I saw the case for Mobley too, right? Being that fluid of an athlete with his defensive instinct, there was going to be some stuff there. I think for Mobley, the thing was, could he be your lead offensive initiator? And I think he got in a situation where he doesn't have to do that, right? He's in a situation where he can be a connecting player, really focus on his defensive abilities and pass the ball and hit shots in a timely manner. I think, like I said, that's a good situation for him. With Jalen Green, some people have said, Jalen Green was in the G League. He was going to be more NBA ready. I think being a main offensive initiator, it's just going to take more time than being a linking player because you have to make the reads. You have to, break down the defense and create an advantage. And that's a lot harder than having the advantage created for you. And, one of the things coming in for Jalen Green was, how is he going to function as something other than a scorer? And I think he's really done a lot of good things as a playmaker. Last night with KPJ out, he was able to handle the ball a lot more, and he was really making good decisions with the ball. And he was really making good reads in pick and roll. And I think that was something coming in that a lot of people were skeptical of. Is this guy just going to be what do they call him? Jordan Clarkson 2.0, right? So I think he's already made good strides as a playmaker and as someone who can read the defense. And hopefully, by all accounts, is a fast learner. He'll be able to get to some of the advanced reads as the season goes on. And he'll be better working with KPJ once KPJ comes back too. I think he was able to handle the ball a lot more, and he was really making good decisions with the ball. And he was really making good reads in pick and roll. And I think that was something coming in that a lot of people were skeptical of. Is this guy just going to be what do they call him? Jordan Clarkson 2.0, right? So I think he's already made good strides as a playmaker and as someone who can read the defense, and hopefully, by all accounts, is a fast learner. He'll be able to get to some of the advanced reads as the season goes on. And he'll be better working with KPJ once KPJ comes back too. I think we're going to get into that later as well, of, KPJ as a lead ball handler and stuff like that. I think there seems like they are trying to have Green play more as, I won't say a Clay, but kind of like a little bit of like an anti-Harden, right? You don't want to have Green on the ball all the time. It seems like they're trying to have him run off screens. They're trying to have him be a cutter and do these off-ball things, so that way you don't have the pitfalls that Harden had in terms of, once I give the ball up, I'm just going to stand at the break line and let y'all do what y'all need to do. So I do like that. I think coming from where we did come from in terms of Harden dominating the ball like that and visualizing your star in that way, it's just going to be a change to a player like Green, where he's, more multifaceted in how he's going to attack the defense. So I think that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. And I also think that, Stephen Silas, if you look at his coaching lineage, he doesn't really come from the style of play that Mike D'Antoni does in terms of, I'm going to run high spread pick and rolls, to have bigs doing a lot of the passing. He wants to have guys cutting and running off, drags and stagger screens and things like that. And 21 actions coming out of the corner, the point guard and the shooting guard, kind of like a DHO, things like that. And I think that's an adjustment for the fan base too, because with Mike D'Antoni, you knew what was going to come out and happen, right? They were going to let Harden get a screen, and if they switched the screen, he was going to cook on the big, right? And that was going to happen pretty much every possession. And it's going to look different until you can get a lot of these guys comfortable with the offense, comfortable making reads, and not even just Jalen Green making reads, right? With the way they want to run offense, you need Jae'Sean Tate to function well as a passer. You need Christian Wood to function well as a passer. You need Şengün, who hopefully will get more minutes, and can function well as a passer. But those things are all going to be more important when you have a more egalitarian offense. You need more out of your other players, because definitionally almost your star is going to be more dependent, because it's not a heliocentric offense where he's doing everything for him. You need, all these players to work in sync with one another to really have a productive offense. And, the last couple of games, the defense hasn't looked great, but I did think for the first, especially that road trip, right? I thought the defense looked pretty good. And I think instilling a defensive culture is going to go a long way, as long as, Silas doesn't end up losing the locker room, and kind of things have been, mentioned back and forth about that. But I think the losing has really become paramount in terms of, what's gone on in both the fan base and the coaching staff's mind, because you can tell the last couple of games, they've really tried to press to get some of these wins, right? You're playing Eric Gordon, David Nwaba, Christian Wood, Daniel Tice, like lineups. That's you putting the vets in to try to press for a win. And so I think until they get that next win, you're going to see them try to press for it, because, I'm sure conversations are being had internally as well in terms of, we want to see something, happening here on the floor, and more than just, we're running these actions and we're setting up our defense. We want to see that translate to points or translate to, some type of win, even though it is a very young team. And I want to mention that as well, right? Like, the Cavaliers have been rebuilding since LeBron left. Yep. The Rockets started their rebuild once James Harden left the door. So we're really in year, 1.5 of that process. So we shouldn't be in the same place that a Cleveland is, or a Detroit is, or a Memphis is, right? Because they've been rebuilding for 4 or 5 years. So that's something I think people need to keep in mind. And it's going to be a lot of losing this year, but hopefully we get, a Paolo Banchero or a Jabari Smith or a Jalen Duren. And once you have those two cornerstone guys that you drafted really high, if those two guys aren't delivering, then you can start to have some concerns. And, we did draft 4 guys in the draft, but, I think everyone is going to be pleased with Şengün's play so far. So I really wouldn't say that, that's a blight on Rafael Stone's draft record. I think Şengün was a very good pick. Even though it was a little bit controversial at the time with some people, I think he's already showed well. And I think Jalen Green is slowly showing that, he's deserving of that draft position as well. So Garuba and Christopher, those were some bigger swings. We'll see how they develop, but I think it's comforting that you got the big ones right. I think Şengün and Green, I think those were good picks. Yeah, Mobley's looked good, but this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? Let's see how Jalen Green looks going into year 2 when he's able to add strength. Let's see how Şengün looks once he's been in an NBA training program for multiple years and he can add some strength and mobility as well. Şengün is already pretty mobile. We had the stretch big shirts that came out with him doing the full split. So already pretty mobile that way. But I think, a full year is going to really help those guys. And we'll see what we're able to do in the draft next year. And I just hope that the fever pitch or the outcry to get rid of Silas I hope it doesn't get too overwhelming this year. I think they should at least let him finish out the season. And if there's no development over the year, then in the off season, you can, make that decision. But, there's a lot of players that have been impacted by just having coach after coach after coach. I think even if you don't think Stephen Silas is right for the long term of this team, I think firing him 15 games into Jalen Green's career sets a really bad precedent in terms of organizational stability. So that's kind of, the holistic picture of how I view it in terms of where Silas is right now. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Silas, patience. It's just, Aaron Rodgers, RELAX, relax. Like,
yeah,
that's the best advice I can tell my Rocket fans. But whether or not they take it, that's up to them. But Silas, I mean, come on, we remember him last year. He's coming into a situation where, cool, I took this job. Look at me. I got James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And I got PJ Tucker and Eric Gordon and a bunch of these other guys that, you know what? As long as I got Harden and Russ, I'm going to be competitive and I can work with this. And then it just crumbled fast. And all of a sudden, he's coming out with John Wall, Christian Wood, Jae'Sean Tate trying to get minutes, David Nwaba getting minutes, and just a rotation of injuries, Oladipo for a little stint that Rocket fans don't want to remember. And so
the wow factor, I think people
the wow factor. That was a 5-game winning streak. 5-game winning streak with the wow factor. Those were the highest of highs last year. And all of a sudden, it's, well, this guy can't coach. He doesn't know rotations, and he did come up with, I hate to say the word excuse, but I do remember Big Sarge asking him, hey, what's going on with, your lack of rotations? And he was saying, well, we've had injuries. Daniel Tice was injured, and, he's had different people in and out of the lineup. I would say I do love KJ Martin. I'm smoking high on him. Like, when they drafted him in the second round, I was very, very high on KJ Martin just because of the raw potential he has and what he can become. I'd love to see a minutes increase on him. But again, there's a lot of guys on this team. Veterans are going to be played, like you referenced already. He's looking to help his job. He's got to feel this, the seats getting warm. He's got to feel it. And I hate to say that because I'm a big fan of Silas. I was a big fan of him before they hired D'Antoni. Thought someone that they could look at too. And of course, rumors came out that he was one of the finalists with Mike D'Antoni in that coaching decision. So with that being said, Silas does deserve more time. Let's have some patience. I do want to get into, you're talking about passing, talking about people passing the ball. Kevin Porter Jr. is a big topic on Rockets Twitter. Is he a point guard? Is he a shooting guard? Should we focus on positionless basketball? What are your thoughts on Kevin Porter Jr. and what he's done so far?
Yeah, so I think KPJ himself kind of talked about this in a post-game interview a couple of days ago, but he kind of mentioned, I was trying to be a traditional point guard. I need to play, I think he called it scoop ball, right? And with scoop ball, I think what he was getting at there was I'm not a Chris Paul, I'm not a Ricky Rubio, but I can still be a lead ball handler in terms of I'm breaking down the defense and creating an offensive advantage with my scoring threat. And then by doing that, he's opening up lanes for Christian Wood to roll, or opening up, the kick out pass after driving. And it's same thing with Jalen Green, right? Like Kevin Porter Jr. needs to get to some of the more advanced reads, but with where this team is at this life cycle, right? It's okay if he's really just breaking down the defense and making the one pass away, or making, the skip pass and things like that. I don't think he needs to be, trying to make, Chris Paul type passes at this time. Just make the right play, get downhill, and get the defense rotating. I think he was trying to do too much early, and you could really tell those first probably 8 or so games, he was trying to throw a lot of like really fancy passes. He's trying to throw a bunch of wraparound type of passes. He was trying to throw some slick bounce passes through the lane, and things like that. And a lot of the turnovers, especially came in KPJ and Tice pick and roll situations. And it's hard to tell on some of these passes if it's KPJ not hitting him in the proper, shot pocket, or is it Tice fumbling the ball? Some of them could have gone either way, but the moral of that story was they were not on the same page as pick and roll partners. And Christian Wood is someone, when Harden was here, he looked like the best finisher in the history of mankind. So I think getting KPJ and Jalen Green more reps with Christian Wood as a pick and roll partner is going to help them, because Daniel Tice doesn't really offer you a vertical spacing threat, not the way that Christian Wood does. So I think allowing them to play with Christian Wood as a vertical spacing threat, as someone who can pick and pop and just be diverse in the way he attacks, even as a short roll passer, right? I haven't been super high on Christian Wood as a short roll passer, but allowing him to get the reps in doing so, I think that's going to help everybody out, because, the passes that KPJ is having to make to Tice are a lot tighter of windows than it would be if it was Christian Wood, because Tice also doesn't have the gravity that Christian Wood has as both a vertical spacer and a finishing threat below the rim. So Christian Wood is going to have, more defensive attention on him when he's rolling or when he's popping. And, just from a basketball theory standpoint, right? Like when you set a screen, you're setting a screen to make the defense make a decision, right? Am I going to go under the screen? Am I going to go over the top of the screen? What am I going to do? And we saw last night, Jalen Green did a good job about, they set the screen. Lou Dort wanted to go under, and when he went under, he made them pay by hitting a deep three, right? And so that's what we need to see from KBJ as well. Like, set the screen, whatever the defender does, you're making the correct read off of that, and you're using your scoring thread to get downhill and just make the correct pass. We don't need to see him going above and beyond right now. And, for this year, you can tell he's up for an extension coming out of this year. So they want to get as much information and data on him as they can. I'm fine rolling with the KPJ, we'll say as a point guard or a lead ball handler is the terminology I like to use, but I'm fine rolling with that experiment through this year. Let's gather all the data, have, 82 game sample size, and then we can really make a good decision in the offseason whether they need to, try to find a veteran point guard, try to find someone in the draft to be more of a lead ball handler. And then you move maybe even Green to the 3, KPJ to the 2, and then you have that point guard at the 1. But even, given everything that's happened this season, you can really see when you watch some of these matchups, the advantage of having 2 guards that are the size of KPJ and Green, right? These are guys that are both 6'4", 6'5", and taller, big wingspans, very athletic. And they've been able to dominate some of the matchups that they've had with smaller, less athletic guards. And so just the advantages that presents, were they able to really make it work, I think opens up a lot of possibilities offensively. And I think another thing I want to note about KPJ is, for as questionable as some of his passes have been this year, he's really stepped it up defensively. Yeah. And he took on a lot of primary defensive challenges that you would not have seen last year. He was a primary defender on Steph Curry. He was a primary defender on LeBron. He was a primary defender on Jason Tatum as well. I mean, these are not easy defensive matchups. Those are 3 of the most premier guys in the entire league right now. So for him to take that challenge on defensively, I think that needs to be commended as well, because, as difficult as learning the point guard position is, it's equally as difficult to try to, defend those guys, because they're giving you crazy types of looks and very different looks, right? LeBron and Steph Curry aren't attacking in the same way. Jason Tatum attacking a little bit, kind of like a mix in between those two guys. So that's something I have been noticing, as well as, KPJ is trying to learn offensively, but also trying to learn defensively. So it's a lot for a young player. And we have to keep in mind, KPJ hasn't even played 100 games in his career yet, just because of, the various things that have gone on, COVID and the fallout with the Cavaliers. So he's not as young of a player as Jalen Green is, but think about it like this, Jae'Sean Tate's 24, 25 years old. Kevin Porter Jr. is still only 21. So, there's still a lot of time, even though he is up for an extension, which is kind of a critical moment in his trajectory in his career. Look at a player like Lonzo Ball, right? Like Lonzo Ball came in, just slowly and steadily chipped away at the rock, and now he's looking like a very good player. And Kevin Porter Jr., maybe not a second overall type of talent, but he's a guy that came in with, plenty of talent. There's no holes in his game. He can really do everything, scoring, passing, defensively, athletically. So sometimes, again, there's just so much pressure to be good right now. And at the end of the day, it takes reps, it takes time, it takes, building chemistry with either a Daniel Tice or a Christian Wood as a pick and roll partner. Because I mentioned this on Twitter a couple weeks ago. Chris Paul was here for 2 years, and he really never got the chemistry down with Clint Capella as a pick and roll partner. And you think Chris Paul is one of the best pick and roll players ever, and Clint Capella is one of the best lob threats in the league. So that chemistry isn't built overnight. It takes time. So,
and getting toward the end of this video, I do want to ask, how many years is the Rocket fans got to be patient until you see some sort of, competitiveness to the point of a play-in, or, how many years do you see the Rockets finally coming back as to what we're accustomed to?
So I think there's a very specific timeline, right? Last year, I'm sure everyone's going to remember, we panicked the whole year once we started losing. Are we going to give our pick to OKC, or are we going to be able to keep it? And that was really the talking point throughout the year. Thankfully, the basketball gods looked favorably upon us, and we were able to keep our pick, and we were able to get Jalen Green. And this year and 2023, we don't owe our pick to Oklahoma City in a swap. And so I think that is your development window. You get a player this year, you get a player next year, and going into that following season, once you owe your pick to Oklahoma City again, you want to be maybe not, title contention, but at least somewhat competitive at that point. So that way you make sure you're not gifting Oklahoma City, a third overall, fourth overall type of pick. So that would be my timetable. Obviously in between there, it's not going to be a linear development. It's also not going to be, we're going to stay at 1-14 the entire time either. You want to see some improvement gradually during that time. And if we were to get, another top guy coming out of the draft this year, I think you're going to see Jalen Green develop as a player, see that next draft pick develop as a player, and we're going to be able to start racking up some more wins, right? But I think there's a very firm line for me of once that year starts where we owe Oklahoma City that pick again, that's when you have to be competitive again, because you don't want to give them, an in-conference, in-division rival. They're not in our division. I think they're in the Pacific Northwest division, but definitely an in-conference and a historical rival. You don't want to give them a top 5 pick. And we avoided that this year. And I think that's going to be the timetable, is make sure that by the time we need to give them that pick again, we are at least completing for a play-in type of spot.
We grab these guys. Let's say you get these picks. There's a lot of young guys on your team, man. Is there a way where the Rockets do potentially package some of these young talents or even the picks in order to grab someone they really want? They look at a team with a superstar, but a struggling team, possibly wants out. The NBA, every year there's that one player that comes out that wants out or is rumored to be wanting out. Do the Rockets swing for the fences a little early and then project long-term success for the next decade like they did with James Harden?
So I would be inclined, given the correct player and the correct price, to do something along those lines. And for this one reason, right? at a certain point, we're going to have those Brooklyn picks coming in. You know, Brooklyn, they haven't looked as good as some people thought they might have even this year. You know, Kevin Durant, James Harden, you know, Kyrie Irving, you know, you never know where you get from him. You're going to be bringing in those picks. At a certain point, you're not going to be able to draft all those picks. Let's say we move Eric Gordon and Christian, maybe even Christian Wood, right? You're getting even more draft picks in those trades. You can't roster all of these guys. And if you're getting top guys, I mean, you're going to let, you know, maybe a 13th or 14th overall type of pick just sit on the bench. I mean, I guess, you know, Atlanta has some of that because they have a lot of high picks, you know, DeAndre Hunter, obviously the injury situation, but they have guys that are just, you know, on the bench because they had so many high draft picks. But even Atlanta, they made the trade to bring Clint Capella in, and, you know, Capella's not even like a Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum level guy, but he's a guy that really worked for what they were trying to do. So I think, you know, packaging or consolidating some of those picks to even get, let's say, a Capella level guy, but maybe not Capella's role, like just someone around his position level in the league, it's probably going to be a 3, right? Because even if you look at this draft, it's a lot of 4s and 5s, and we have KPJ and Kevin Porter at the 1 and 2. So my assumption would be when we're trying to package those picks, it would be for someone who could play the 3. Maybe that's a Cam Reddish, right? Maybe that's, you know, God forbid the Celtics break up, even maybe like a Jaylen Brown, he could play a 3, something like that. But I am definitely someone who's very high on packaging those picks, just because you're also going to have to think about the Thunder have so many picks. There's going to be a time where they're just going to flood some team with picks because it's going to be the same thing. They can't draft those picks. They can't roster all those picks. They're going to have to cash those picks in at some point. And once they do, they're going to basically reset the market on what one of these stars' value is. Because if you're going to trade, I mean, they could trade 10 picks for a player and, you know, barely even blink at that. So you're fighting, or you're kind of playing the game against the Thunder in terms of when are we going to cash those assets in, because, you know, in the back of your mind, they could, you know, bring some type of Godfather offer over the top of what you could do. So being timely on when we cash those assets in is something that's very important. And like I said, something that I would definitely be willing to do given the correct price and the correct player.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. I know, you know, we talk a lot of Rockets in this family. My dad has continuously mentioned, look, you know, even though the Hornets do play some regular pretty good ball right now, better than what I thought they would be with LaMelo Ball, but that's a guy that my dad just keeps his eye on and hopes and wishes, you know, not to no negative success, New Orleans fan or Charlotte fans, excuse me.
Yeah.
Showing the little age there, but so Charlotte Hornet fans, but man, LaMelo Ball and that red and ketchup and mustard wouldn't be too bad. Some of them new jerseys wouldn't be too bad. It's just an idea that my dad has been trying to manifest into reality.
Hey, he's looked very good. He's looked very good in his time in the league, so I would not be disappointed with that either.
No, I mean the hints from John Morant was a little crazy.
Rockets fan, notable Rockets fan, John Morant.
Exactly. So, you know, if a Kevin Porter Jr., let's say, doesn't really pan out for you, you know, do you look at a point guard? Do you try to bring someone home to Houston that's playing in Sacramento right now, like a De'Aaron Fox, who I'm enamored with since he's came out of the draft? So there's a few guys out there, you know, I'm interested in, but we're going to wrap this one up. We're going to save that for maybe another time. You know, hopefully, we're hopeful 1 in 14 doesn't last forever. We're hoping that the Charlotte Bobcats references go away. I don't want to hear Sean May and Adam Morrison and all them guys. I don't want to hear it. Not at all. Let's move on forward with that. Hopefully, this can calm down some Rocket fans, even though I know it won't. I love hearing the panics and the cries from them, but it's understandable. You know, this team, like you referenced from the beginning, James Harden was here for a decade of playoff success. He got here to the Western Conference Finals with a bunch of ragtags and Dwight Howard, and then he did it again with Chris Paul, and they had some success there. So hopefully we're back onto the playoff road in the foreseeable future. 3 years. I'm going to give it 3 years. 3 years, and now the Rockets are looking into being a competitive team. I have the crazy thought that they could be an NBA dynasty. I don't know if I'm crazy there, if I'm reaching or not, but that is something that I swear I feel it. Or maybe I just want it. Maybe because I got Clyde Akeem and Michael Jordan ripped away from 1984. But that's a whole other story, that whole other video, that whether people want to believe that or not, I believe it. My dad believes it. We will wrap this one up, guys. Go ahead, Don. Go ahead and drop whatever you're promoting. Like, well, you already did in the beginning, but if you got last thoughts you want to say, go ahead and drop it right now.
Yeah. So, just to get some more Apollo plug stuff in, we do have a Şengün, a Jalen Green, and a Kevin Porter Jr. shirt. Those are all incredible. The KPJ one is half Joker, half Kevin Porter Jr., and those were all done by Taylor Pate. Big fan of his work. He does great stuff. And I have a picture of myself, and Taylor has some pictures of him. A picture of me and Brad. I have the KPJ shirt on, and Brad has the Jalen Green shirt on. That posted on my timeline. They're awesome shirts. So if you want to check those out, apollohou.com. If you want to follow the podcast I do, Apollo at Apollo Launchpad, and then follow me at Don Knock. Y'all will see the spaces and stuff on there. It's really easy. And like I said, on the Air app, same name, Don Knock on there. But again, I just want to say thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. Really enjoyed, being able to kind of tell myself to your fan base, and hopefully I'll, be able to put this content out to my fan base as well, and they'll get to become more familiar with you as well. So just want to say again, thanks for having me, and go Rockets.
Awesome, man. I'll drop your Twitter bio as a link in the description below. I'll drop Apollo down in the description below. I will tag everybody as I will on Twitter. Make sure to follow TheLead, HOU on Twitter. Make sure to follow Don Knock at Don Knock, pretty much as you see it on here. So as always, guys, go Astros, go Rockets, go Texans. Yeah, have a blessed night.